just to check the levels, do you mind telling me what your first concert was that you can remember?
It was Alice Cooper.
Where?
It was Alice Cooper.
Where?
In the Memorial Coliseum.
Wow.
That was a long time ago.
How old were you?
Very young. I was a preteen.
By yourself with your parents?
No, I went with a bunch of guys from the swim team that I was on.
Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah, I thought he was very weird, but it was fun.
It's OPB Politics Now for Friday, December 20th. This week, Portland's incoming mayor and city council were officially sworn in to their new positions at City Hall. But the door hasn't completely shut on the current administration. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler has just over 1 week left in office, and he's in a reflective mood. This week on the podcast, we're letting him look back on his 8 years in office, give advice to his successors, and talk about what's next. I'm OPB Portland City Politics reporter Alex Zielinski, and last week I sat down with Wheeler for a final interview before he leaves office. Wheeler has spent nearly 2 decades in elected office, starting as Multnomah County Board Chair, then as State Treasurer. He entered the mayor's office in 2017 and has overseen a uniquely tumultuous period of time that included the COVID-19 pandemic, massive racial justice protests, an explosion of deadly street drugs, and a spike in homelessness. I've been reporting on Portland for almost his entire tenure, and will say that this conversation was by far the most upbeat and optimistic I've had with him. While he's definitely exuding senior and high school vibes, he's also uniquely hopeful about Portland's future without him at the helm. Here's our conversation. To start, 8 years in office, what is something that Portlanders might not know about you after 8 years still?
Oh, that's a tough question. Relationships matter to me. And I hope that people have seen that I've worked hard to maintain relationships with other elected leaders, other people in the community, even when I have disagreed with them sharply. I would actually argue that in politics, the relationships are probably more important than the policy or the process that you get to be engaged in. And so I have considered that something very important, is just to maintain the relationships, to continue the trust that you have with people. That doesn't mean you have to agree with them or they have to agree with you, but you have to have open channels of communication in order to be successful.
How would you characterize your leadership style, and how has that changed since you entered office?
Oh, that's a great question. I would describe myself as goal-oriented. I would describe myself as focused. I probably have become more of a big picture leader and less of a micromanager than when I started office. And I've certainly understood that different levels of government have to cooperate. I don't think I'm surprising anybody when I say that the relationship between the city of Portland and Multnomah County was terrible when I took office and for my first several years as the mayor of Portland. And we needed to work together. We had a growing homeless crisis. The county just fundamentally did not believe in shelter. They thought that that was a waste of money, a waste of resources. It took their focus off of building housing over the long term. But meanwhile, the city of Portland was responsible for public safety, for maintaining public right-of-ways, for maintaining our green spaces and our parks, and we just could not get on the same page. And so with time, what I realized is we need to work with these folks because they provide mental health services, not the city. They provide substance use disorder treatment, not the city. They provide domestic violence survivorship, youth services, transitional services. They have navigation to housing that they create that we don't have. And so it was like an escape room. We either all got out of the room together or we all stayed locked up in it.
How did you improve that relationship, though? Like what?
Intentionally. I would say it started with Jessica Vega Peterson and our desire to rewrite the script when it came to the Joint Office of Homeless Services. We now have the Homeless Resources Action Plan, the HRAP plan. It is a firm agreement between the city and the county. It includes very specific goals about what we want to achieve, which is reducing unsheltered homelessness by 50% over the course of the next year. And it lists about 100 different specific strategies. and boxes that we will check collectively in order to get there. And by the way, we've already done a lot of it just in the last several months. Mm-hmm. And so I think those kind of clear partnerships with clear, unified objectives, and then some public means of holding ourselves accountable and clearly articulating who's responsible for what has made a big difference. Mm-hmm. And I also just think the culture has shifted. I think we at the city have made a great case that accountability is compassion, that having people live out on our streets is basically a death sentence for many of them, and that we need to invest in immediate shelter as well as combine those shelters with services to help people get off and stay off the streets. And I feel like the relationship has largely been successful over the course of the last few years.
Well, let's stick on homelessness a bit.
Sure.
Your successor, Keith Wilson, has a proposal to solve unsheltered homelessness. In 2017, you came in with a similar promise to move everyone into shelter within a couple years. That didn't happen for a lot of reasons, many reasons outside of your control, right? The economy, housing costs, fentanyl. Looking back, what didn't you know about homelessness then that you know now?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say that the dynamic of homelessness has shifted. And I want to be very clear. It's easy to stereotype homelessness as people having one set of circumstances or another. Homelessness is a catch-all for people who have fallen through a variety of safety nets. It could be that they have fallen into poverty. It could be that their rent was escalated. It could be that they have unaddressed mental health issues or substance use disorders. They maybe were released from our prison system at the state level recently without a clear plan of what they were going to do next. Or all too often, and this is particularly tragic, they're coming out of our youth system. They're coming out of our foster care system and being transitioned basically onto the streets of our communities. And so, this isn't rocket science, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily something I learned, but it's something I feel more strongly about today, which is if you want to address homelessness, there is no magic bullet. It is a wide variety of social services interventions and economic interventions that need to happen in order to get people off the street. And what I'm excited about is, when I took office, the city didn't have a single shelter site, not one. We now have about 900 shelter sites, pod housing in both our Safe Rest villages and our task sites.
900 sites, not shelters.
Not 900 sites.
No, I'm sorry. Yes.
Like, this is huge.
I apologize. Yes, we have 900
beds.
Beds, correct. And what's different is that every single person who comes through the front gate is assigned a navigator, and they're connected to services. And what we've seen now that we have those 900 beds is that just in the last 2 years, about 500 formerly chronically homeless individuals have now been transitioned off the streets into permanent housing with the suite of services that they need tailored to their individual specific needs. We used to try to serve everybody with a one-size-fits-all solution. That's a 1990s model. Now it's tailored to the individual needs of people. It is expensive. A lot of work is required, but the data shows it's working and it's working well, and we need to stay the course on it.
What advice have you given our mayor-elect around this crisis?
Well, first of all, the city has faced many simultaneous, what I would describe as worst-case scenario crises in recent years. We had COVID, we had a global lockdown, we had an expansion in the number of people sleeping on our streets, largely as a result of the CDC guidance telling us not to remediate camps during COVID. We had new drugs hit our street that nobody could have imagined 10 years ago, P2P fentanyl and the like. And we've had resulting livability issues, litter, graffiti, needles, biohazards. We had to shift city government fundamentally to address those issues around public safety and homeless and livability and economic recovery. And we've done so by introducing new programs, new leadership, new partnerships, streams of funding. And what I want the public to know is it's working. The results are really good. And so when you ask me, what advice have I given? Stay the course. On public safety, crime is way down in Portland. People don't feel it yet, and I get it. That's an emotion that will come with time. But auto theft is down 50%. Vandalism is down 40%. Shooting incidents down over 30% just in the last couple of years. And homelessness, as I say, we now have hundreds of people moving from chronic homelessness to housing, livability. The city of Portland didn't actually have any programs for litter and graffiti. We now have the Portland Solutions program, which is aggressively cleaning up litter, graffiti, lighting our public ways, activating our community in exciting ways that people appreciate. And economic recovery, we're seeing some of the best numbers we've seen in years in terms of foot traffic, new business openings, traffic through PDX, hotel occupancy rates, which are now reaching 90% on weekends in the city of Portland, things that bounce back. So my advice to the new city council is stay the course. Live in the house a little bit before you redecorate it or start sledgehammering out the walls. Build on what we've done, because the work we've done was hard-fought work, and it's working. The turnaround is happening in Portland.
How do you see your role changing, or did you see your role changing after announcing that you weren't going to run for re-election? Did it allow you to do more, or to maybe give up some focus that you might have had if you were running for another 4 years?
The changes I needed to make in order to accommodate the new form of government, which, by the way, in addition to all these crises, the people of this community said, we want you to fundamentally reform the structure of government, which we've done. So I chose to lead that effort as mayor, and I did not want to be running for election at the same time I was telling my colleagues who are also running that I was taking all their bureaus back, because I did. On July 1st, I took back all 26 bureaus. We consolidated them under an interim city administrator who I had hired for that purpose, Michael Jordan. We now have a team of deputy city administrators who work in our new cluster areas, which are groupings of bureaus that work horizontally with each other to solve similar types of problems. And that has been in place now for 6 months. So when Keith takes office as mayor on January 1st, I'll be able to toss the keys across the table, and the government is working just fine. The same is true with our new elected city councilors. We have a very rigorous onboarding process set up for them. They're participating. They're being very much engaged with our city leaders and city administrators and bureau directors. They're not only learning the ropes, but they're also starting to work with each other and figure out how do they take the knowledge that is already here within our city ranks, our 7,000 employees, and use it to build upon the agendas that they want to create moving forward.
And so you're saying if you were actively running for re-election in a system that you were kind of primarily overseeing, it would have been too much work. And also,
I had many other
iffy
reasons. I mean, let's just be honest. I'm also burned out. I need a break. But I felt that it would really inhibit our work to transition to the new form of government if I was also actively a candidate running for mayor at the same time that I was trying to consolidate power and authority within the executive branch that I just happened to oversee.
Right.
I thought it would be a significant conflict of interest.
Speaking of things that have burnt you out, I have a very vivid memory of interviewing you directly after being tear gassed by federal officials. I think the first time I probably ever interviewed someone when we were both actively crying.
I remember that.
At a work session this week, you said you haven't seen your perspective reflected in coverage about 2020 protests. I'm curious, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?
Would I have done things differently? I doubt it. And frankly, nobody could have seen 2020 coming. And it wasn't just George Floyd, and it wasn't just COVID, and it wasn't just the economic lockdown, and it wasn't just the other social ills confronting our society and our community. It was all of the above. So I don't think anybody realistically could have anticipated that. I think my team and I and my fellow city commissioners and our city employees, we did the best we could with the resources we had and the knowledge we had at the time to shift city resources towards those new concerns. Are there things I could have done differently? Yes, probably. But the point I also wanted to make during council the other day is that the analyses I'm hearing about 2020 are still, and I don't mean this as a criticism of anyone individually, but the analyses are superficial and they're often self-serving. There's a lot to be learned from what happened in 2020 that is distinctly different than the riots we had in 2017, 2018, and 2019, where we had Antifa versus the Proud Boys at all. The police in that case were the interveners and the dividers and the people trying to maintain the peace. And they did an outstanding job on the whole. 2020, when George Floyd was murdered, the anger shifted towards the police directly, which made their job so much harder because now they're not only responsible for public safety and maintaining property and lives and all of that, they're actually the focus of all of that anger and, frankly, some of the criminal discretion and violence that was taking place on our streets. So how they intervened mattered. And what I saw them do was a series of different things, from significant intervention in kettling to complete hands-off approach when they felt that their intervention might actually exacerbate things and make it worse, to a day when they invited people in Black Bloc to sit down with them on the ground on a grassy area and talk to them directly. What was it that they were trying to accomplish? What did they want? Mm-hmm. All of those strategies ultimately did nothing individually to stop the anger and the frustration and the criminal destruction and the violence. It just sort of petered out on its own. Mm-hmm. And of course, it did not help when the federal government intervened in a very, very aggressive and ham-fisted way. Even as we saw the protests starting to peter out, then in comes the federal government and it just relit the whole tinderbox. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, with time, I think we can all reflect on, if we knew what we knew today, what would we do differently? Mm-hmm. But I think it's still a bit of an open question.
Yeah.
And what we put that learning, what we thought we knew, into effect for the election here in 2024. And we had better coordination. We had multi-jurisdictional support. We had all levels of government from the feds on down working with us. We had a unified coordination center, command center. We had a joint information center. So we had one message going out to the media, and nobody showed up. So was that a success? Yeah, we got through election night without a single arrest. But we still have the question hanging out there. What if 500 angry people had shown up? How would things be differently fundamentally from the way they were in 2020? Mm-hmm. And that's the question that still remains hanging over the table.
You've been pretty clear about how challenging your job has been, for all these different reasons, all these different multiple challenges happening at the same time, having to, be the victim of public harassment and kind of criticism during all these times as well. But what were the easiest parts of your job to you?
Oh, geez, yeah. Well, the easiest part of the job, and it's kind of the fun part of the job, to be honest, is working on the big visionary ideas. I've really enjoyed working on MLB, Major League Baseball, and bringing a franchise to Portland. And by the way, I'm really bullish on that. I actually believe we will be awarded a franchise when that time comes. But it's been fun to work with the people at OMSI on their really incredible vision around their master plan, around OMSI, the folks who want to rehab the Keller Auditorium, and I think it is starting to move towards a joint effort both at Keller and PSU. And PSU is super important to the future of the city, so I like the idea that we're doing that. And the one that's probably the most attainable in the near term is the James Beard Market near Pioneer Square. That is a game changer, and that's one I hope the new mayor and the new city council get behind in a big way.
Mm-hmm. You've spoken about your biggest achievements too, from opening up these alternative shelter sites to creating Portland Solutions, addressing trash and graffiti. What are some maybe small achievements that have been especially meaningful to you that maybe the public haven't been aware of?
Yeah, and to be clear, I can't take credit for any of those things. As mayor, I have limited authority, but the truth is I also have limited scope. And the reality is we have hundreds and hundreds of city employees who actually do the work, and they never get the credit for it. And I would argue that one thing I did well that was sort of beneath the radar is I believe I am very good at picking leadership. Bobby Lee, my former chief of staff, was instrumental in creating the Portland Solutions program, which I believe the next mayor and city council have all agreed they want to continue that program around homelessness and livability and safety-related issues. But we've also done a good job with our police chief, Bob Day, Mike Jordan as our city administrator, Mike Myers in our public safety cluster, and many, many others who are continuing to work tirelessly behind the scene to innovate, to provide leadership, to build teams collaborations, and financial support for the solutions that the city needs to address the city's problems today and into the future. So that's an area where most people wouldn't necessarily pay attention, but I feel really good about. We've got great leaders here at the City of Portland, and I'm proud of helping to bring that team together.
You spent much of the last 2 decades in elected office, not just in Portland, but in other spaces. Over that time, trust in government has really wavered and plummeted. Why do you think that is?
Oh, that's a terrific question. First of all, let me just be completely clear. I don't know, but now that I've stated that, let me speculate. Support for all institutions in our society has plummeted, whether it's government, whether it's the media, whether it's religious institutions, whether it is academia, whether it is the corporate sector. We live in a time marked by distrust. And I think that distrust is coming from a broader sense that things aren't moving in the right direction. We've certainly seen polling here in Oregon and in the city of Portland that suggests the public just thinks we're moving in the wrong direction. That polling is reflected nationally. I think Americans generally, Portlanders specifically, are really anxious about the future. They're anxious about their economics. They're anxious for their children. They're anxious about the trends they see in our society. And it's really been typified just in this last week with the assassination of the CEO of United Healthcare. We all of a sudden have this boil burst where we're having this really weird national dialogue about political assassination and large percentage of Americans who think it's justifiable. I don't, just for the record. But it shows the level of anger and anxiety that people are feeling. That's the challenge for the incoming mayor and the incoming city councilors, is to understand they will be governing at a time when people already don't trust them, where people already are listening with an ear to failure. And what I want Portlanders to understand is no matter how tough things seem or how anxious people are, things are actually going pretty well for us here at City Hall. And I would really encourage people to support our new mayor and support our new city councilors. They really are good people. I don't agree with everything they believe in, nor should I. But they're here for the right reasons. They want to do right by this community, and I hope people will embrace them and support them and work with them to help make our community a better place.
So as you're leaving office, I'm curious, do you feel responsible for the future successes of this city?
Absolutely.
And how do you see yourself still investing in Portland while no longer in public office?
Yeah, I feel very strongly about this, and it's maybe just my own value of civic engagement. Your ticket to complain is to participate. And there are plenty of people in our society who want to whine and complain, but they're not willing to lift a finger to actually help move their community forward. That rankles me. I was born and raised here. I know that the ethos of this community is direct engagement and participation in ways big and ways small. I will continue to be engaged in this community. I don't know specifically in what way. I need to step away first. I need to take some time with my family. My daughter's a senior in high school. I want to spend a little bit of time with her before she's launched into the world. But I have a very short attention span. I get restless very easily, and I will stay engaged in the community. I just don't know in exactly what capacity today.
Do you see yourself ever running for political office
That's
again?
not on my agenda. I've been in politics for 18 years. That's a lot longer than I thought I'd be. And I'm really looking forward to doing something different. Maybe I'll be engaged in some of the same types of issues, but from a different vantage point. I'm really looking forward to turning the page and doing something differently.
Mm-hmm. What do you think you've improved the most about Portland since entering office? How is Portland better off?
I think it's better off because of the programs we put into place and the results that we have achieved. And I don't need to redo all of it, but we obviously had a significant gun violence problem in the city of Portland. We still do, to be clear. But we put the focused intervention team in place. We put the enhanced community safety team in place. We put community-based solutions like the Office of Violence Prevention and the Ceasefire program into place. And today, gun violence is down over 30% just in the last couple of years. We've done similar things around the Street Services Coordination Center, the task sites, the SRV sites, the outreach workers in our homelessness arena. And we've seen very, very good results with hundreds upon hundreds of chronically homeless individuals now moved off the street into housing. We built the Public Environmental Management Office and Portland Solutions from scratch. I'm hearing every day from people that graffiti is increasingly rare, that we're seeing less and less litter and the like on our streets, that people love the street lighting program that we've done throughout the central city, that people like and appreciate the murals that we've put around the city working with local street artists. It's all making a difference, and I'm proud of that work. And I can't, again, take credit for all of that work. I was a leader, but I was one amongst many. The city council had a role to play, the bureau directors had a role to play, and each and every one of our 7,000 city employees had an important role to play too. So I feel like I was sort of the band leader, but I wasn't playing the trumpet.
Where do you wish you had gone further?
I wish I had had more time to spend on some of these big picture, fun, visionary, long-term projects like the James Beard Market, like Major League Baseball, like the Keller Auditorium, OMSI, Broadway Corridor. There's so many things that are just popping here in the city of Portland right now and will continue to do for years to come. I mean, one thing I had very little to do with was the Rothko Pavilion at the Portland Art Museum. That's going to open this year. And you guys, it's game-changing for arts and culture in this city. It's going to be fantastic when it opens, and that's going to open this year. And so I was happy to be a cheerleader on the side, but those are the kinds of projects that I think energize me and are exciting, that could really make an impact for future generations. And I'll be doing some of that stuff on the side as a private citizen after I leave my office as mayor. But there's some great opportunities there for the mayor-elect and for the city councilors-elect.
What are you looking forward to the most in leaving political office?
Not having my phone ring morning, noon, and night 365 days a year. And while I have been intentionally trying to reduce my stress levels and take care of myself physically, it's really hard to do in that environment. And I've done it for a long time. And I'm looking forward to taking a step back, reclaiming evenings and weekends for myself and for my family, and regrouping and doing something new and different. This is the first time in probably 40 years where I didn't actually know clearly what the next step was for me. And that's, on one hand, it's kind of scary. On the other hand, it's exciting.
A lot of options.
Yeah.
One thing that I've never felt certain of, and I think I've heard this similar from others in the city, is knowing exactly what motivated you and what motivates you. You know, you said during your State of the City address that your North Star as a leader shifted while in office. What was your North Star when you entered office? What is it now, and how did it change?
The question got more complicated with time. When I was elected your Multnomah County chair back in the day, 2006, and when I served there, and when I served as your state treasurer for 6 years starting in 2010, I always saw myself not only as a public steward, but also as an advocate and representative of the public's interests. When I became mayor, a question started to open in my mind, one which I still cannot answer, which is, are you elected to represent the will of the community, or are you there to reflect on and represent specific programs and values that you have espoused? And the reason this question became relevant is because the playing field, if it was a game board even, the game got thrown across the room and landed on the floor when COVID hit and the economic shutdown happened and all of the resulting social problems happened. All of a sudden, the public will shifted dramatically. The question that I'm still asking myself today is, should I have reflected that shift in public will, or should I have maintained a longer-term view towards where I wanted the city to go. And I still haven't completely reconciled that in my mind. I think to some degree a pivot was necessary. The public was saying we want non-police interventions, for example. And that allowed us to do things like Portland Street Response and expand the PS3 non-armed response through the Police Bureau and fund programs like Ceasefire to help reduce gun violence in the community. But on the other hand, I still have people screaming at me today wondering whether or not we set the city up for an escalation in criminal activity by focusing on non-police interventions for that short period of year. I do also just want to say this. The Police Bureau budget's gone up 42% since I was elected. And 2 years ago, I said we'd bring in 300 new police personnel. We just brought in over 200 sworn new officers about a month ago. We met that threshold and surpassed it ahead of schedule. So I feel like we've been able to pat our tummy and chew bubble gum at the same time. We have both improved our public safety response. We've gotten good public safety numbers as a result, but we've also put the community-based interventions into place that the public wanted. The hard part is sustaining it all in a time of great budget challenges. But that's the challenge for the next council, is how do you sustain what's working and what's showing positive results while also trying to figure out how do we fund new things that we have promised to do during our campaigns. It's a never-ending challenge.
So you're saying your motivation started as kind of just reflecting the public interest, and then you kind of shifted to this, should it be what the public is calling for? Should it be what I think is best for the city?
The people of this city liberated me. They don't realize it. But when I became a pariah, both of the left and the right, and for exactly the same issues, it happened during the protests of 2020. You had the right saying I was aligned with Antifa and that I was not supportive of the police. You had the left saying exactly the opposite, that I was a tool of the police bureau, that I was in the pocket of the police union, that I was all about law and order, and I wasn't listening to the moment in terms of what people wanted in terms of non-police interventions in the community. So basically, the city divorced me. And in that sense, that gave me clarity and it gave me freedom to do what I thought was the right thing to do. And that's what raised the question in my mind. Maybe I should have just all along done this, is just focus on what I want to focus on, the way I want to focus on it, believing that it was the right path forward for this community, and maybe listen a little bit less to the angry voices, both on the left and the right. Because in retrospect, I think they're both wrong about the moment. And that's why I said in council the other day, there's a Pulitzer Prize waiting out there for somebody who can give a less superficial and less self-serving analysis of what really happened in 2020. And not just, who did what, but what was the public's mindset and why did the public mindset change the way it did so quickly? There's a lot to unpack there, and we're still unpacking it today. Not just here, but nationally. There's a national reckoning happening around political violence. And it's a conversation we better have in this country, and we better have it openly, and we better have it right now.
Any lasting words of advice for incoming electeds, but also just for Portlanders?
Yeah. I know that people don't feel the turnaround yet. And I understand that that is an emotion. And that is a harder thing to change than simply looking at public safety data or looking at homeless data or how many tons of litter we've cleaned up or whatever. The public will believe the turnaround is here when they see it for themselves and experience it in their own day-to-day lives. And more I'm hearing from people in the public, some of whom used to be very, very critical of my leadership, saying, you know what, I'm seeing the results. I'm seeing the trend line move in the right direction. Keep it going. So my advice to those who succeed me and succeed my fellow members on the city council is stay the course. A lot of work went into the programs, the initiatives, the partnerships, the funding that is currently in place. The results are really good, and they should stay the course and build upon what works. And they don't have to take my word for it. The beauty is this is all objectively measurable, and they can look at the data and come to their own conclusions. But to me, it is overwhelmingly clear Portland has turned around. And I'm asking the public to be open to the possibility that things are getting better. We have been trained to have a negative outlook about our community, about our state, and our nation. But if you look at your neighbors, if you look at yourselves and your own families, there's still a lot more good there than there are things to be afraid of. And I just really hope that people pull together in this community, support your mayor, support your city council the way that people used to do in this community, and work together to solve these problems, which I know people do because I work with people in the community each and every day, all day long, who are working to solve the problems of our community, and they're winning, they're succeeding. And I want more people to feel that sense of winning and succeeding. So be open-minded to it. That's all I would say.
This episode of OPB Politics Now was produced by Andrew Thien, and our audio engineer is Stephen Cray. Our music comes from Audio Network. We'll be back next week with another conversation with another Oregon politician who's leaving office. In the meantime, check out all of OPB's political coverage at opb.org. And one more thing. We're trying out something different in the new year. We spend this podcast answering big questions about politics across Oregon. But we want to know, what questions do you have? We want to hear what questions about Oregon politics, big or small, you'd like us to dig into in the show next year. Drop us a line at opbpoliticsnow@opb.org. Thanks for your support, and thanks for listening.